So DC, hi there guys and gals. Well, I'm making a couple videos this afternoon. I made one just before. It was a short Spooky University one. And the next one I was going to talk about was every now and then I pull out these scientific papers that are actually quite interesting because they bring up new topics and sometimes rather strange topics. This is one from a journal called Medical Hypothesis, and the subject, it's an author from a very well-renowned university, and actually here in Switzerland. And the title of this review that he wrote, or hypothesis, is Connecting the Obesity and the Narcissism Epidemics. Now that seems quite strange, and since obesity is one of the keywords when I search for things. I had not come up on this before for some reason. It was published in 2016, so it's been out there for a while. One of the things here is that one develops, like we could say, in narcissism, there's two main types, we could say, the aggressive and the vulnerable ones. And in one case, we could almost say is that the aggressive ones create anxiety. Basically, let me go back a little bit. A lot of obesity problems, and of course, not all of them, but many of them which are caused by phenomenons, are often stress response related. And because of that, you can already see the whole thing, like when we talk about comfort food and so on, or people, just grabbing the first thing they can see to eat to veg out, and it might be, drinking 5-6 beers instead of, you can see where I'm getting at. People will go very often for food, for high calorie things, or something that will make them forget. And very often that is caused because, this is the hypothesis, because we live in such a narcissistic society that the stress that boils down to the less narcissistic people from the aggressive ones, let's say, brings this on. Now, of course, is this the only reason that people would be obese? Of course not. But it is an interesting hypothesis. The vulnerable narcissist actually ends up very often being an obese person, so to say, because it brings it on themselves. It's like it should be all about me, but it isn't. So I'm frustrated, and so I go and eat. Now, like I say, one of the things related to this, and why it's also quite interesting, it's because obesity has often been connected with, in the animal world, for example, with antibiotics. Now, why do I bring that up? Because antibiotics, they basically screw up your microbiome. They kill off a lot of your good bacteria, which are used in your immune system, and obesity seems to have something to do with an inflammatory response. So, if you have like the stress response, it does tend to do the same type of thing. And we do know, from research that we've done as well, is with animals, you will screw up the microbiome of these animals very often and make them less resistant, or actually you can almost say fat-related microbiomes. I'm getting a bit too scientific here probably, but anyway, it's all part actually of almost, you could say, a holistic approach, which at the same time has a scientific basis. That's where I still find it's quite interesting. Do I think that that's the real reason for the obesity problem? Actually, not really, but it could be one component. Another big component, which was not touched here, but because of this narcissistic world, and I don't think the person mentioned it, but people tend to sleep a lot less. Lack of sleep is very much related to obesity because of certain metabolic responses. And another thing, if you put it all together as well, is the fact that you have lack of sleep often means that you have bad eating patterns, so that you end up that your night is used for digesting instead of fasting. So like I say, there's a whole system of metabolism factors that aren't in sync and don't help you actually store or get rid of the energy the way you should. Okay, like I say, anyway, I mean, I wasn't actually going to end up talking so much about science, but I ended up talking about quite a bit of hypothesis. So it's an interesting paper, like I say, and it's an open source paper. So if ever you wanted to read it, it's in Medical Hypothesis. That is the journal, and just look up the subject matter. You can type in the keywords obesity and narcissism epidemics, and it'll come out. Yeah. So DC signing off with a little science lecture. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.